You have exactly 3 seconds to like and subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, I'll appear in your dreams tonight. To ask for a donation for that cup of coffee, link below.
Throughout human history, firearms have been continuously developed to meet the needs of warfare, law enforcement, self-shooting, and sports. Through this process, we have witnessed the emergence of increasingly effective and improved firearms. Some have even become legends and symbols of human scientific and technological advancement. AK-7 Block 17, Winchester model. 18. However, alongside them, there are many designs that have left everyone wondering why such terrible ideas could be created. Before we get into the main content, join the community of military knowledge enthusiasts on YouTube today by leaving a like, subscribing to the channel, and clicking the notification bell so you don't miss any interesting content coming out in the future. Music. Now, without further delay, let's get to the first name on the list: the light rifle. The type rifle, a weapon dubbed the model the worst gun of World War I actually. France. In fact, this was a weapon considered far ahead of its time when it was introduced in the autumn of 1960. The son of Colonel Louis Sa created a level of infantry firepower unmatched by any other army. The gun was one of the harbingers of a new era of automatic weapons because it could be transported, loaded, and fired by just one soldier. However, the Sosa's regrettable case because it still has to be included on this list today due to reasons related to its design, production process. Looking at the gun, the first impression is probably its crude appearance, looking like a disorganized collection of metal plates and scrap parts. This can be explained by the fact that the Sosa was manufactured at a bicycle factory called Gladiator, Paris, and because the workers there lacked experience in gun manufacturing, it naturally resulted in a terrible gun the production had issues with. And there were also reports of poor quality materials and improper heat treatment of gun components. It seems that when the Gladiator was tasked with manufacturing the guns, the French army focused only on producing them quickly and in large quantities, paying little attention to quality. Furthermore, because they were produced during a fierce period of war, it was decided during the design process to use standard French army ammunition at the time. The reason for this was to reduce the burden on ammunition factories, which were already struggling to produce enough ammunition to supply the front lines. This sounds very reasonable, but the problem lies in the fact that the AMMIL has a wall, which, when stacked, reverse burning shape compared to rimless ammunition. To solve this problem, the designers created a semi-circular magazine, and this detail also contributed to the issue. One of the biggest flaws of the flimsy, small-capacity rifle, holding only a maximum of 20 rounds, is its weak spring, a common description given by soldiers regarding its magazine. Furthermore, the magazine is almost completely open on the right side. While this allows the shooter to quickly check the remaining ammunition without removing it, it also allowed dirt and all sorts of debris to get inside. Additionally, the lip of the magazine is prone to jamming, and the entire magazine can easily be crushed or deformed during firing. With this problem, the barrel frequently overheats, and it is considered not only prone to jamming, but almost certain to jam, causing many French and American soldiers using the rifle to pay with their lives. A clean, well-oiled rifle will jam after only 300 firearms, while a dirty rifle will jam after only 100, meaning the shooter will have to wait more than 10 minutes for the barrel to cool down and the holster cooled down so that it could continue firing. And as if that wasn't bad enough, the deep-seated gun produced such a large recoil that it could deliver a punch straight to the eye or cheek of the shooter if they didn't know how to defend themselves properly. Furthermore, due to having only one slender, unstable, poorly calibrated vision, hitting target at distances over 100 meters with this model was considered a lifelong achievement, while hitting a target at 400 meters or more completely. For all the reasons mentioned, it's not hard to understand why, in the eyes of French soldiers in the United States who had to use this model, it was certainly a useless, cursed piece of junk. But it certainly shouldn't be censored because it will be a profound lesson for the gun industry in the future. Next, you to see a model whose inadequacy not only puts it on this list, but even directly competes for the title of the worst machine gun in human history. Yes, that's the Preda Modelo 30. From the homeland of pizza. It was the standard Italian light machine gun during World War. The Preda Modelo 30 was truly a technological marvel, in the most negative sense, to the point that many experts agreed that if forced to choose, they would pick the Preda Modelo 30. Indeed, this model encountered numerous problems. First, its construction was more complex than necessary, requiring a greater number of machining operations to manufacture one, compared to contemporaries like the V's, Browning, and M1918. Meanwhile, the Preda Modelo 30 itself failed to meet expectations and did not perform well in combat condition. The Italian machine gun design used a closed bolt mechanism, meaning no air circulation, leading to heat buildup. For a light machine gun, all that accumulated heat would cause the chamber to explode even without pulling the trigger. And it could potentially injure the gunner himself and cause fatal injuries. Besides, another drawback of the closed barrel system is that to ensure proper cartridge ejection, an integrated oil reservoir in the breech lock is needed to lubricate each cartridge when it is loaded. However, this would create a disaster for soldiers on the battlefield in places like North Africa, where the oil acts like a magnet attracting sand and dust, leading to rapid jamming. If the gun not kept clean, the need to pump oil to lubricate the cartridges makes cleaning the Preda Model 30 a nightmare for every soldier. Furthermore, to solve a problem dating back to World War I, the detachable magazine's loading lip could be damaged during disassembly. The designers decided to create another problem by integrating the magazine and breech lock. The magazine in A is fixed to the right side of the breech lock with a hinge. The gunner to rotate the magazine forward and use a 20-round magazine holder to load each cartridge. The bullets are loaded into the magazine. Then the magazine is closed, and firing continues. This method of loading ammunition reduces the actual rate of fire of the Preda Modelo 30 to about 150 rounds per minute under ideal condition. While under less than ideal conditions, its rate of fire can drop even lower than that of a semi-automatic rifle, especially because the magazine clips are very fragile and easily damaged. Not only that, like the deep magazine of the Preda, the magazine has a gap that allows the user to check how many rounds are left, and also allows dust and debris to enter, affecting its reliability. Moving away from European products, the next name that comes to mind is from a country whose name alone should be a guarantee of quality products. But this is one of the exceptions. It's called the Nambu Thai, developed by a former soldier named Nukiro in 1934 and went production from that year, 45. This semi-automatic pistol was issued to the Imperial Japanese Army during World War II and primarily served as a compact and lightweight firepower source. However, it was also dubbed the most terrible pistol design ever used. by the military due to its poor features, difficult to use, difficult to disassemble, and more dangerous to the operator than the target. In terms, the Type 9 Chase 2 ammunition emission, entirely metal, had a small diameter, slow muzzle velocity, and very poor ballistic performance. Many assessments consider this type of ammunition quite weak for general military use. It could be used for suppression operations or executions, but it certainly lacked the power for combat missions and was only effective at close range. Furthermore, not only was it lacking in quality, but Type 9 4 also couldn't provide sufficient firepower as its magazine only held 6 rounds. Amount. The AX-2 barrel create excessive chamber pressure for the bolt, making it difficult to install. The already small stock means soldiers have to use considerable force just to insert the magazine, pushing it all the way to the bottom of the magazine. The magazine's base isn't very sturdy, leading to the risk of contents falling out without warning. Furthermore, because the magazine pin protrudes from the frame, soldiers must be careful when holstering the rifle to avoid accidentally touching the pin and causing the magazine to slip out. As mentioned, the Type 9 4 stock is already not wide enough to fit a magazine, and it tapers from top to bottom, making it prone to slipping out of the hand when the trigger is pressed hard. In addition, this rifle has very serious flaw: it can accidentally fire when dropped or handled carelessly, spreading rumors among Allied soldiers in the Pacific that the Japanese, when feigning surrender, would try to do so. The story of the self-firing pistol, designed to kill the enemy, popular. Some jokingly called the surrender pistol. Despite its drawbacks, the Imperial Japanese Army continued to use this model until the end of the war. Approximately 1,000 were produced by 95, with production quality declining each year. Initially, they were supplied to tank and aircraft crews in the hope that they might not need them. However, the Japanese were forced to use the number 1 pistol widely because their industry lacked the time and resources to produce anything else. Next, we would like to introduce to you a model that possesses arguably the most modern and imposing appearance on this list. However, contrary to its eye-catching appearance, this was a complete design failure. The GJZ rocket-propelled pistol. In the early 19th, a small company called M Associate from California, USA, developed a new type of rocket-propelled weapon aimed at revolutionizing the world of fight, known as the jet, which existed in both pistol and car. This was a high-powered rocket-propelled weapon, a rare attempt by the developer to create a completely different weapon with unique features, such as low noise, the ability to fire underwater, and considerable firepower and destructive capability. However, the jet proved extremely inaccurate, and furthermore, this weapon was quite ineffective at direct range, and only demonstrated its power within a range of 36 to 5. Some US military personnel even spent a very limited number of jets on the Vietnam War, but there are no reports of successful implementation. By the end of the 19th, the project had died. As mentioned, the jet is a rocket-propelled weapon that uses a type of projectile. Armor-piercing projectiles are made of steel with pointed tips and are equipped with rocket engines and stabilizing components in the form of inclined jet nozzles to cause the projectile to rotate around its, thereby stabilizing the rocket. However, due to slow acceleration, the gyrojet is almost useless at short range. Furthermore, another inherent problem with this weapon is its poor, even this gun hits one target out of every 100 shots. And in reality, this happened much more frequently. In addition, its accuracy is very poor because the projectile lacks sufficient stability in the initial phase of its trajectory. Not only that, the manufacturing and maintenance costs of the gyrojet are quite high, but completely unwarranted given its numerous drawbacks. Perhaps the only positive point of this weapon is that it is relatively silent. conventional gunfire. Nevertheless, the Jarjet still deserves a place in the history of development. Individual attempts at creating unique combat weapons are rare. If, at the beginning of the video, Italy presented us with the poorly designed Preda Model 30 machine gun, now they continue to contribute to the list of worst gun with the Lenti model, nicknamed the Luger. This was the first semi-automatic pistol equipped for the Italian army in World War, created inventor Battelli revolver to replace the outdated Bodo Model 1889 revolver. The Lenti used a very complex operating mechanism with the idea of using 6.2 as ammunition. However, disappointed Italian military officials because the gun was not as powerful as they expected, at least not comparable to the bot. And this was met with envy towards the Luger using 9.0's parabellum ammunition. Germany decided that the Glint had to be modified to use a similar type of ammunition, and this is where the trouble began. Originally designed for smaller projectile, the Glint structure was fundamentally not strong enough to withstand the force of a standard 9mm parabellum round. A single powerful shot would cause the magazine to explode. To address this, they created a special type of ammunition for the Glint, maintaining the same size but with less gun. As they produced a pistol with significantly poorer ballistic quality compared to other 9mm caliber pistols. Furthermore, the Glint's use of its own ammunition created logistical security issues, as its rounds could easily be mistaken for standard 9 parabellum rounds. If a soldier accidentally loaded the wrong type, it could damage the pistol or, worse, injure them. Additionally, due to weak structural design, the screws frequently loosened at unexpected times, causing the pistol to malfunction. The pistol often tended to self-destruct in a rather blatant manner. Despite all the reasons why the Genti was still put into use, with its low damage and magazine holding only 3 rounds, it offered no real advantage over the revolver, and therefore, many officers decided not to replace their old secondary weapon with the Genti eventually. However, production was gradually phased out and completely stopped in 19. However, the mass production and introduction of the famous Beretta M34 from 1934 did not cause the Genti to dissipate. Instead, it continued to be used until World War II by some garrison units of the Army, Coast Guard divisions, and Gendarmerie units, until it was officially withdrawn from service in 19. To conclude today's list, we invite you to an attempt to hybridize the revolver design with a rifle, which is the clearest evidence that even big can make embarrassing mistakes. The model 1855 revolver from the renowned in the mid-19th century had established itself as the leading manufacturer of, and their products were the best on the market. Following this success, the company's engineers attempted to incorporate revolvers into the purpose of this project was to enhance the firepower of American cavalry units, which at the time still used single shot. The result was a revolver called the Model, produced in 4 different barrel lengths, and along with 3 different calibers, CH4 and CH56. The CH44 used 5 round, while the CH56 used 5 round. Although the engineers believed their design would succeed, it completely failed. Because one reason is that firing shells with muzzle brakes creates a lot of hot air, and this airflow often contaminates the remaining chambers, leading to overheating and inadvertently activating other rounds, causing malfunctions and injuring the shooter. Although the United States introduced and modified the Model 18F, its service life was short, with only a few thousand produced in total, making one of the worst gun designs ever. Music. In the history of firearms, there are many examples of innovation and success, but it also includes notable failures that highlight the challenges in weapon design and manufacturing. Each gun mentioned at the beginning of the video illustrates poor design, manufacturing error, and impractical concepts that can lead to the creation of weapons remembered as embarrassing mistakes. Besides, these milestones also serve as a reminder to designers that technological progress often involves trial and error, and not every idea. It's thought that all ambitious weapons can withstand the harsh realities of use. So, in your opinion, among all the guns featured in today's video, including the Saprita Modelo 30, number 94 Jetland model 1910, and Carino Quay model, which is the worst? Also, are there any other worthy names? Don't hesitate to leave your comments below. And now, don't turn off the screen yet, because Military Knowledge has prepared something interesting for you, appearing right after this. Music. Music. Music.